Do you find there are beliefs in your life that are holding you back from really enjoying life more and maybe not sabotaging yourself so much? Well, today's guest shares how he was blocked by so many beliefs in his life, and through going through so many modalities, he was able to break free and create his ideal life now. Disclaimer: any of the guidance offered by the podcast host, myself, or the podcast guests is our own guidance. We are not liable for any of the actions the podcast listener decides to do. Welcome to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. And today I welcome Mike Wood to the show, and I'm excited to hear a little bit around Mike's conscious awareness professional background and his Learn to Love Being You program as well, and much more that we're going to touch on. So as I say, Mike is a consciousness awareness professional and the creator of the Learn to Love Being You program, a 10-week journey designed to help people break free from anxiety, self-doubt, and the emotional spirals that keep them stuck. After rebuilding his own life from the inside out, Mike has dedicated himself to helping others rewrite the beliefs that shape their reality and reconnect with the part of themselves they forgot they had. Welcome to the show today, Mike. Glad to have you on.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Johnny. And I appreciate everything you're doing with your podcast. Sounds like we are on the same mission to try to help people in any way that we can. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. So it's going to be a fun conversation today. So yeah, Mike, I'd love to know first of all, what is for you? What's building a life from the inside out? What is that?
You know, Feeling it from the inside out is getting the mental noise to quiet so you can actually enjoy your life. If to answer your question is, our brains are constantly pulling us into the past and the future. When we quiet it all down, amazing things start to happen, and and that's the ultimate goal. It's a little more complicated than that, but if you simplify it, it's bringing your attention into the present moment and truly living every moment instead of constantly just fretting over what's going to happen.
Being in the present moment. I love that. Cool. And how did this all start for you? You've obviously got this Love Being You program. You're helping this conscious awareness as a conscious awareness professional and helping people be more in the moment. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story and what got you into this line of work.
If I go all the way back, I learned how to read at about 25 years old. I graduated high school in California with probably a second grade reading level. I have a rare form of dyslexia that kind of left me with some pretty challenging core beliefs that I was stupid, that I wasn't as smart as all the other kids in school. And I didn't realize how it haunted me over the years. And I had anxiety and depression and at a pretty heavy level that just I tried to mask and not really show anybody what was really going on inside. So I was constantly living, as an actor almost. But on the inside, I was tormented on a regular basis. And I always thought that the next thing that I accomplished was going to make me happy. And I worked my ass off, and that next thing wouldn't make me happy. It would give me a little self confidence that I could do something, but then I would always set another goal out okay, because that would make me happy. I'd find my wife and best friend, that would make me happy. Find a better job. Oh, that would make me happy. No, that ain't going to do it either. Let me get a better job. My wife could stay home with the kids. No, that ain't going to do it either. I had set and achieved every goal in my life. And with each one of them, I almost became more miserable in my own mind. The voices and the negativity got louder and louder and louder. And around 45 years old, about 7 years ago, honestly, I was at the breaking point. Like I was going to quiet my mind by any means necessary. And I stopped focusing on the rest of the world, what I could achieve out there. And I just turned my focus inward. I went on a crazy, intense 4 or 5 years of just self exploration. I tried every modality on the planet to try to figure out how to quiet the monster in my head. And I've had a lot of success, to be honest. And that's kind of what kickstarted it is just the endless misery in my own mind that with all the false hope of that something was going to solve it by achieving something. The whole time I could have been happy and peaceful anywhere along the line, and I just had no idea.
So it was like chasing achievements for you, and that just wasn't giving you. I think it's really appreciate you saying that, because I think there's for me certainly can resonate with that journey as well. Like always trying to achieve things to validate me and that kind of route. And yeah, you realize it's kind of like those 4 or 5 years you managed to go inside a bit more and then really start like connecting yourself. It sounds like on a deeper level. Was there like anything that in particular just like started that journey? Like maybe you discovered a teacher, or it was
Mhm.
just you got to a point of like, right, this has to change.
When I turned in, one of the first things, you start Googling and you start trying to do self-help stuff. And of course, Tony Robbins popped up, and he's talking about yourself and working on yourself. And Buddhism started falling into the fray, little meditation. And meditation immediately worked at a weird level. It was hard for me to meditate at first. I could only do it for 10 or 15 minutes, but it did leave me feeling great for 10 or 15 minutes after that. And I was like, wait a minute, okay, that's something, right? Like it was an actionable item that I could do. And it quieted my mind for a minute or two. But then over time, you had to meditate more and more and more to get that same feeling. But it let me know that I was heading on the right path. And somewhere along the way, I realized that any internal focus would turn my mind off. And I realized that if I put a crystal in my hand, that the crystal would vibrate. I could feel the crystal vibrating in my hand with certain crystals that are a little more powerful. And it sounds like a weird, corny little thing, but it was pretty powerful for me because when I would put a crystal in my hand, I carried around one around all day in my pocket. And when I'd pick it up, put it in my hand in a meeting or whatever I was doing that day, if I had a little bit of focus, mental focus on my hand, and I could feel the energy vibrating in my hand, this would turn off and I would just be present in the mental zone. So I started using a crystal as a way, like as a tool to quiet my mind. And not everybody could feel that, but it was kind of a gift that I guess I kind of a little more sensitive to energies. And so I got intrigued with the energy that is me, right? We're all energetic beings walking around because everything that inside of us is literally operating off of energy at some level. And I got intrigued by a an energy therapist named Chris Hancock, and I started going to him. And it started out we've done 3 or 4 different things, but he's a brilliant man who had his own deep dark night of the soul and transition out of traditional therapy into a more of a spiritual type work. And in his office, man, I learned how to go back and well, really not even go back, but I learned how the subconscious mind actually works. There's 2 parts of every human. There is the true self that is wanting to expand and grow and help people and raise a family, find the love of your life and get out and just do things, explore the world. And there's another part of you that wants to keep you safe. Your subconscious mind, its job is to keep you safe. So any pain that you've experienced, any negative things in the world that potentially could hurt you, its job is to scan the universe for those potential threats and keep you safe. So at all times, that noise in our head is literally our subconscious mind regurgitating the past pain that we've experienced in an attempt to protect us from that happening again. So it's trying to keep us safe by giving us all this negative thoughts because it's scanning and looking for those. Hey, don't you got hurt when you were 5 years old and you weren't as smart as everybody else. So then I spent the rest of my life worrying about not being smart enough and being embarrassed about my intelligence in all aspects because that's what my mind was spinning on. It was a program. It got programmed when I was 5 years old. And it carried on until I rewrote that program. It's just like a computer that in your office. It's a program, and unless you rewrite it, it's going to continue on until you die. It's never going to change, and you're always going to be on high alert for whatever it was that got programmed. So working with Chris, I learned how to identify those old programs and then go back and rewrite them. And it's that right there is the reason I decided to write a book to build my program because I realized once I started reprogramming my own subconscious beliefs, the negative core beliefs that no longer served me from my childhood.
Mm.
I got about 50 in, and I realized I look back at what I've done over the last year and a half, and I realized I wasn't the same person. The noise in my head, I was able to just sit in a chair and be happy for no reason. And it was amazing. It was like this light goes off and I'm realizing that life is different. Since then, I've probably rewritten about 200 of my own core beliefs. And it's just life altering when you're able to do that because you literally get to create the programs that that noise that I dealt with my entire life that most everybody deals with. You have the power. We all have the power to create and rewrite a program to create the thoughts that we want.
Powerful stuff. Did you notice a different? It sounds like there's definite difference in the noise in your head after rewriting those programs and going back and looking at them. Did you notice a change in your behaviors and the
Oh
actions
yeah.
you were taking?
Yeah, everything can change. All of a sudden, one day, I used to love eating KFC's chicken breast. That was my favorite meal. One day, I opened it up and I couldn't even eat it anymore. I stopped
Ah,
eating meat, stopped drinking, I stopped caffeine, like everything that I used to use to make me happy to fill a void. I don't need it anymore, and my body just stopped doing it. It wasn't like I tried to quit eating meat. It just my body said no more. Same thing with alcohol and everything starts to change. When the noise stops and it starts to get quiet, we find peaceful states. And I've learned to program them and insert positive programs, reinforcing, loving, compassionate programs, forgive people, remove attachments. I learned how to do some of these things. And when you start to unburden yourself with all these attachments and the burdens that are causing us pain, the inside quiets and becomes calm and peaceful and joyful for no reason. And your outside world reflects that. So whatever's going on inside is going to reflect into the outer world. And most people think you got to go out here and get it all, and that's what's going to make me feel good on the inside. And it's just the opposite. Once you learn how to make this feel good, everything else on the outside changes. And that's been an amazing thing for me. One, it's happened in my own life. And I don't like to talk about some of those amazing things that's happened in my own life, but I really get a kick out of it talking about the people that have gone through my program and how, they came to me and they were taking anxiety meds, the highest level, 2 or 3 times a day. And within 2 weeks of my program, they stopped taking those meds. They
amazing.
finished the program. It's 2 years later. They're, they've they continued on and they've gotten engaged. They found a dream job that they wanted. They've lost over 30 pounds just because, like me, when I changed the way that I ate and whatever, theirs was just kind of automatic. They stopped trying and all of a sudden, with some little changes in their life that became easy, lost weight. And now they look better. They feel better. They have the dream job of their life, engaged to get married, like, and that's the kind of stuff that I see over and over and over again. And it's not surprising to me, but it's just such a heartwarming thing that when you fix what's going on the inside, everything else starts to come in place. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing.
I have a mentor who says outer world follows the inner world, not the other way around. And it's
Right.
yeah,
He is right.
it's great.
And
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
great. It's crazy what things show up. So you've got the Learn to Love Being You program. That's the 10-week. Is that dominantly about people changing those core beliefs though, or is it there's a bit more to it?
Yeah, there's a good bit more to it. That's the reason that was the heart and soul of it. That's the reason I did it. But at the end of the day, it's about the first 3 weeks is manual taking control of those thoughts because a lot of the work that is in the program is difficult, right? Looking at your fears, old past trauma and stuff that happened, and you have to face it. You have to turn and face it and go to it. And it could be really challenging. So what we work on first is learning how to take manual control of those all the negativity and the thoughts. So when your anxiety is actually really easy to get rid of. I mean, and I shouldn't even say get rid of, but it's easy to address. It's easy to manage with just simple breath work and gratitude journals and simple things where you're manually taking control. You're being very intentional about what's going on in your mind and you can change it with some simple patterns and some repetition. You could do that very simply in a very short period of time. So then when you do have an anxiety attack, or, you get yourself in a funky spot, you know how to use those tools to bring yourself back. But the old core beliefs, the stuff in the past, is most of that's coming from old negative core beliefs. And the way they were created was an elevated emotional state and a clear intention. So I referenced my early school days, right? And I'll reference that one again. I created my very first core belief that I wasn't as smart as everybody else when I was trying to spell my name Michael and I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. My dyslexia, just basically words are like, it's like Chinese or something. I can't, they don't make no sense to me. And I'm trying to write it. And I realized that my teacher's getting frustrated with me and all the other kids had already spelt their name and weren't having the same problem. And she was getting frustrated. And in that moment, I got into an elevated emotional state and which opens up the subconscious mind to be programmed. And then there's a clear intention that got put in there and that clear intention that I wasn't as smart as it. So the beautiful thing about the subconscious mind is that, and I guess it could be a curse as well, but has no concept of time. It's just like a computer. Your computer doesn't know any concept of time. You type something in, it's not sitting around waiting on you. Everything is now, right? Everything to the subconscious mind is now. The beautiful thing about that is if I use my creativity and I imagine that I'm back at 5 years old, I could go back to that moment with my imagination, reframe that entire situation. My subconscious mind doesn't know if that's real or not. And I could reprogram that moment, forgive the teacher, forgive the other students, and forgive myself, reframe that whole situation with compassion. And all of a sudden, my subconscious mind is going to let that memory go because it's not a fearful thing that it has to protect me from anymore. And it will just go away. I won't ever have to worry about that moment haunting me. And it's kind of a beautiful thing when we learn how to actually do it, but it's literally that simple. And the Buddhists have been doing this for about 2,500 years. And there's some different forms and everybody comes up with their own. And somewhere along the way, I created a writing exercise to do it myself and trying to share that with everybody who wants to learn.
Mm, love that. How you've kind of created a writing practice around it and going back and then your concept of the sharing that the subconscious doesn't have that actual idea of times. It's, you can reprogram it in that sense. I just wondered, from your experience, do you feel like you need to find the memory to change the belief? Because I know certainly for me, I've worked for a lot of or had a lot of like limiting beliefs in my life, like any human being, all different shapes and sizes. Yeah, just wondering, do you feel like you have to find a memory?
You do. Yeah, you have to find the memory. What I found is very common with men is we don't remember. It's very common for us to block out memories and you won't even remember any of them. But what I found is when you first start doing core beliefs and you do take back, so like one guy came in and he was probably 24 years old. And the earliest memory that he can remember of any trauma in his entire life was 19 years old at a birthday party.
5 years.
Yeah, and he had a bunch of 'em. He's got hundreds of them, but the one of the ways the subconscious mind will try to protect you is to put a wall up to where you can't remember it. But what happens is if you go in and you get the earliest one and you reframe that one and you reframe it with compassion, love, forgiveness, and now the subconscious mind will release that one and it's not going to haunt you anymore. The subconscious mind goes, wait a minute, you just did that. Maybe try one more and you'll start having a few more memories pop up. One, two, three, and then you address one, two, or three of those, and then boom, another one will come. And then you'll work your way back. And it's hard for some. And I find that men in particular, they had that wall and it's a lot harder to get back. But yeah, you can't rewrite something that you don't know what it is. You're literally guessing. There is other type of work that can help, but this is like traditional therapy. I think can serve in a lot of ways. It can help people deal with trauma, help them understand why people did this, and it can help people navigate issues and be more knowledgeable about what happened and how everybody is dealing with. But the problem is if you just go to a therapist and you just talk about a parent or a caregiver or somebody who treated you poorly, you're dealing with the symptoms. You're not dealing with the root problem. And I think that's where it's difficult for me to understand why we haven't, as a society, been dealing with this in a different way, because this information is, I didn't create this information. I just tapped into it and and got lucky enough to stumble across it. And we should be going to the root of these problems to solve them. We shouldn't be drugging people up. We shouldn't be doing, and in certain cases, you almost need to drug somebody up because it could get so bad where they can't even be calm. But we could get somebody into a calm state and then start dealing with some of this stuff. It loosens the grip, and people can actually breathe. I don't know. I guess I went a little sideways on a tangent there, but traditional therapy, I feel like, deals with the symptoms, and rewriting core beliefs deals with the actual problem.
And I think I resonate a lot with that because I mean, I've done like therapy like many years back and in my life, and it's kind of it's not is it was valuable to an extent of just getting it out of my head and maybe share it with someone else. And there's a stereotype of men don't do it as well, but it was kind of helpful for me. But yeah, it was kind of like talking about the same things almost like in a circle a little bit. So it's kind of like I've had this challenge, that challenge just happening again. Okay, I'm talking about it, but actually, hmm, I need to go a bit deeper and then discovering some of these other people that over the years and looking at limiting beliefs and root beliefs and stuff like that.
Yeah. For me, there's two types of negative core beliefs. Like for me, because I had dyslexia and I felt like I wasn't as smart as everybody, I didn't just have one negative core belief. I was hiding in school, when the teacher would call on somebody to read, I'm in the back hiding behind some other kid trying to hope that nobody calls on me, right?
Sure.
And so I created 10s, 20, 50 core beliefs from my childhood based off of my intelligence. So I had to go back and find each one of those and deal with those. And I'm sure there's some lingering in there and somewhere, but I've dealt with so many of them that I think I've kind of crossed the threshold. But there's another kind. Sometimes people have trauma that is just a one single event. Those one single events, you could just go in and get them, pluck them out in an hour. It will never bother you again. And those are amazing feelings that really give you affirmation when you're doing this type of work, that this stuff really works because you're instantly healed. You don't have to go back and back and back and talk about something over and over and over again. If it was a one single instance in your childhood that was traumatic, you only have to deal with it once.
Mm, mm. Of the power of that, of being able to remove something in that way. Yeah, I guess what would your guidance be to someone right now who's like, I know I've got some stuff like holding me back, but I feel a little bit overwhelmed by all of this. What do I do? Where do I even start?
Yeah. I guess the first thing I would say is contact me and let's get started. Let's do some work. But there are a lot of people doing this type of work. There's EDMR therapy where people unlock the subconscious mind by using, messing with your eyes. There's hypnotherapy where they go back and they find stuff and they rewrite it in different ways. And I'm familiar with some of this other work. There's a lot of work out there where the people are actually going to the source, and you kind of got to search some of that out. But my thought is if you're out there and as I'm talking and you're saying this, and you're like, holy shit, when I was 5 years old, this and this and this happened, and it never leaves me. This is exactly what we're talking about, and it doesn't have to be that way. I think the first thing is having an awareness of what's actually happening. I think that's a major step, because once you understand that it's happening and what's actually going on to create those negative thoughts in your head, you're not just going to rest and say this is okay. You're going to search out something that's going to heal this and something that's going to make this work. So the awareness of waking up, I think that would be the biggest part of this, is just having that moment where the Wizard of Oz, you see behind the curtain. You're never going to be afraid of that little guy behind the curtain anymore. And I think that's what my program is built on. I have a rare form of dyslexia. It makes it very hard for me to read. It still does. I could read now, and I've practiced a lot, but I was given another skill set, right? I'm a problem solver, and I've used it at my job. I took a company from $2.5 million a year to over $100 million a year. We actually have 7 companies, from 12 employees to 350. And the tools that I'm really good at, my skill set, that, the yin and yang with everything. I couldn't read over here, but I'm a problem solver over here. And when I dove into all this mental work, the skill set that I have is to dive in here and understand and solve these problems, like I took a very logical approach about how the brain works because I experienced it all. I turned what some people would say, I believe this or I believe that. I don't believe anything. I go with knowing. You go in with an experience, and that experience creates a knowing because you know you walked into the room, you know you're on the podcast with me, but people believe in God, people believe in certain religions, and people believe life after death, or they believe certain aspects of life, and none of that stuff is really gonna do anything good. Beliefs are just they're really almost lies we tell ourselves to comfort ourselves. This program and what I deal in is knowing. And in week 1, we teach people how to bring our attention into the present moment with breath work, basically use box breathing, the same thing the Navy SEALs use. And it so when you get excited, you practice box breathing and it'll bring all of your heart rate down. It'll calm you down. It'll relax your shoulders, and it'll quiet the voices in your head because any internal focus will quiet it all down. The next couple of weeks, we teach people how to separate and realize that you're the witness of your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. And by the end of week 3, we've taken manual control of our brain, and then we realize, you know, how many times there's somebody you love hanging out with because they make you feel amazing when you're around them. But there's also somebody, like, holy moly, I can't be around them for very long because I feel like crap when I'm around them. It's because energy starts transferring, and we don't realize how much the thoughts in our head are influenced by just being around different people. And once we start to identify that, we start resetting boundaries in our entire life. Sometimes you might even have to leave a spouse or just have a serious conversation with a spouse or your best friend because they're negative all the time. That is implanting those same negative thoughts in your head and reinforcing them. And we have to become aware of all that. Once we do that, now we're in a place of power. We've taken control of our space. We've set boundaries, and we have a set of knowing that we're not our thoughts. We're the witness of our thoughts. We know where to find peace and joy. We have the tools to bring us into that, even if it's temporary. And then we move into some weeks where we change our perspective. You learn what it actually means to love yourself. It's kind of a corny thing, especially for a lot of men to say something like that. But most people, they'll do so much for everybody else, but they won't do the same things for themselves. Play some mind games and help people reframe how they actually treat themselves. And then we learn what attachments will do to you. um, Attachments is one of the biggest cause of pain because anything that we try to hold on to is going to cause us pain. I like to play a game with people in that week when I'm working with them, and I'll kind of mess with you for a second. And you're a phenomenal podcast host, so but I want to mess with you for a second. But what I'll do when I sit down with somebody is I identify whatever they do for a living, and then I'll question them and I'll say, "Look, Johnny, you are a shitty podcast host." And when I do that, people immediately have a physical reaction in their belly, and I'm assuming that you just had the same thing. So when you say something like that and you get a physical response, even if you know I'm joking and I'm not being serious, that physical response is involuntary. It's in our gut and it hurts and it feels bad. But if I say to you right now, Johnny, you are the worst attorney on the planet. He kind of laughed and he shrugged it off like, I'm not an attorney. Why would I even care? It's because you're attached to one, but you're not attached to the other. And anything that we hold an attachment to, whether it's our job, being a good husband, being a good brother, friend, anything that we hold as an attachment is now an immediate source of pain. I took being a husband off of what I'd call the Christmas tree, the ornament. I took that ornament off. And I immediately became a better husband because when my wife would come to me with a problem, an insecurity, or something, I didn't immediately try to defend myself because I have an attachment to being a good husband. And she comes to me with something where maybe I'm not living up to her end of the deal. My immediate response is to defend myself. I'm like, I do everything for you. I live my life for you. Why don't you understand? But if I take that off the map, I could simply just be calm with her and say, lady, help me understand how I can make you feel better, right? Because I'm not trying to defend myself because I don't have an attachment to being a husband. And that's such a simple thing to remove is our attachments. And then forgiveness, being able to forgive ourselves and others. And then behind that is removing, rewriting old core beliefs. So I say all this long-winded way of saying through my program, healing is such a dynamic duel of all these things, and each one of these weeks gets stacked on the other. You have an experience that creates a knowing, and another experience that creates a knowing, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, all the way through 10 weeks. And each one of them is different and profound and powerful. And by the time you get through the end of it, you're not the same person anymore. You're empowered, you're powerful, you have the ability to take control of your mind and your body, and it's liberating and it's powerful. And it doesn't mean that I don't still have bad days physically or whatever, but I'm able to disconnect from it to the point where it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't take control because I immediately know how to respond to what's happening because I know what's happening. It's pretty powerful.
Powerful program, kind of like your life's work, and to help
Yeah.
people really get
It
through
really is.
some of those things that are stuck, keeping them stuck. Uh, I'd love to get your view on like, because it like, this was early in the conversation, but you were saying, "Oh wow, I just suddenly gave up drinking. I gave up my KFC." But I was looking at things differently. I know a lot of people try, especially right now, are trying like to use a lot of like willpower around like New Year's and stuff. What's your kind of view on that? Can it work?
You know, power can work, but you're trying to override a program. I
Mm,
mean, you really need to think about it that way. You're trying to manually override a program. Like it you're so how long did it take you to learn how to drive, right? You start driving around 15, 16, 17 years old,
mm,
and it takes us about 6 months to where we're driving down the road, we're not freaked out, right? Maybe a year, depending on the person. But now when we drive, we don't think about it. We drive most of the time, we're completely unconscious when we're driving. We're talking on the phone, we're listening to music or a podcast or something, and we're completely unconscious. That unconsciousness, we weren't unsafe when we were driving. We were driving off the program, and that program is powerful. It's how we walk, it's how we talk, it's how we breathe. It's everything is happening unconsciously, and it's all a program. So you have this supercomputer that has a program in it that's capable of driving for you. It's capable of breathing, operating your entire body, and you're trying to manually override it by saying, I want to do something and go do it. And it's just very difficult. That's why all these New Year's resolutions, they fail. I mean, the rate of New Year's resolutions that actually succeed is like 12% or something. It's extremely low because we're we're basically swimming upstream. If we want to do something physical and make changes on the outside world that affect us on the inside, we're going about it the wrong way. It has to start here with this mind. If the mind, most people, well, literally everybody's pain filters back into one of four things: ugly, stupid, unworthy, or unlovable. Everything fills back into one of those buckets. So let's just say mine is ugly, right? And I want to lose weight. You literally have a program that is telling you to eat subconsciously. So if you're not awake, if you're not consciously awake in the moment, in the present moment, and you're thinking with your thinking mind, you're just going to randomly eat. You're just going to randomly grab a sandwich or a snack or something, and you're not even going to think about it. You're just going to automatically do it because that program is telling you you're supposed to be big. You're ugly. Don't you know you're ugly? Like that's the program. And in order for us to stop eating or to work out or to do some of these things, we have to rewrite that program. And that's what makes the change. If you search out why, I had one girl whose dad put her on a weight loss program at 12 years old. It is a horrible story. I almost came into tears listening to her telling me the story. In order for her to get to where she was working out and to do right, she had to go back to that moment and live that because her dad made her feel ugly, unworthy. And in that moment, that program got set in there, and the body is constantly scanning for that now. Like you're ugly. If you don't do this, this, and this, you're considered ugly. And we are all living on these things. And most of us get into our caregiver. You know what I mean? And so in order for her to get past that, she had to go back to that moment, face it, forgive her dad, forgive herself for buying into the bullshit. Then it frees herself. And then all of a sudden, she doesn't have something in there telling her that. And she's able to work out. She's able to put away the Oreos and eat an apple. it's not as hard. You're not pushing upstream anymore against a program that's saying that you're ugly. That program's gone now, and now all of a sudden you can reprogram a new program because you're not fighting an old one. If that makes sense.
Mm, absolutely, yeah. I love those examples you given there. So yeah, it's just powerful. I was using it because I can think of lots of all the will in the world, and it just kind of goes backwards. And like you think of the health example, I can think of people in sort of going into bad relationship as examples as well. It's like
Yep.
it's programmed almost like to deserve someone that's not good for them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's a perfect example. Yeah. They don't deserve, they're not worthy of true love, somebody to treat them well. I mean, that's, and because you look at somebody and go, you are the most amazing thing. Why are you putting up with this? Like, somebody from the outside, it makes no sense. But they're working off of a program that nobody can see and nobody can understand because it's not logical. It was created by a 3-year-old little girl or a 5-year-old little girl or a 6-year-old girl. That program was written by them when they got into an elevated emotional state with a clear intention. And there is no telling what that 6-year-old girl told herself.
Some great, and I love what you're doing with your program and how people can really help themselves with some of these core beliefs that are holding them back and just going in and readdressing them. Yeah, Mike, I'd love to learn just specifically where the listener can go to get access to your program or to reach out to you, find out more about your work. And is there maybe a final point out of all the great golden nuggets you shared with us today that you'd like to leave us with?
Sure. I'll start in order here. To contact me and my program, it's learntolovebeingyou.com is how you get to my program online. Me is Mike at learntolovebeingyou.com. Feel free to contact me. I'll reach out to you as quick as I can. And a final note to everybody is you're not broken. It feels that way. Your mind is making you feel like you're one of those things, ugly or unworthy or not smart enough, but it's none of it's true. It's all just a program, and don't buy in to the thoughts in your head. Try to separate from them, witness them. You are an infinitely beautiful, perfectly imperfect human. Like that is what is part of, like, this is the experience that we're all supposed to have. Everything is supposed to be a lesson, and you're not broken. It may feel hopeless. I've been there, but you're not. It appears that you have no control over your thoughts, but you do. You can gain 100% control of all of it. And when you do, it's extremely powerful and your life can change in just a moment, just with a simple awareness in this moment by waking up. And I know that sounds simple, but waking up is an extremely powerful thing to do.
I love that, Mike. So yeah, for the listener, you can be sure to grab Mike's links. It will be in the show notes below this episode to find Mike's program and to reach out to Mike or find out more about Mike's works. And I love the final words on nobody is broken, and you can change things for yourself in this moment. Yeah, Mike, I want to thank you for all the work you're doing and everything you shared today.
Yeah, and thank you. You're doing equal work here. I appreciate you too, brother. It's nice to talk to you and your ability to relate, and have a very informed conversation. It's been a pleasure. So thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.